Hello, I'm Cary-Hudson and welcome to Guitar Tarot Volume 2. I just played a song called Green Sleeves. It dates from the Renaissance era. Some people say it was written by Henry VIII. We're not really sure about that. But I chose that song because we're going to talk about the key and the chords of D, major and minor today. This song really illustrates the way those two different chords sound. Here's D minor, which is usually characterized as having a sad sound. In fact, Nigel Tufnell of Spinal Tap says D minor is the saddest of all keys. So here's D minor. I ended the song on D major. Decidedly more happy. I played that one in dropped D tuning, which I'll cover some more later on in the series, but I use my handy tuning fork. Get back to standard tuning of E, A, D, G, B, E. So let's go back to what we did in the first session where we learned the C chord and the C major scale. So if I start the C major scale on the second note of the scale, the D, sounds very different. We've created a minor scale using the notes of the C major scale. That's known as the Dorian mode. It's a minor mode scale. So what makes a chord major or minor? A major chord is built up of three notes. The first note in the scale, the third note in the scale, and the fifth note in the scale. For instance, if I want to build a C major chord, I will use the 1, 3, 5 notes of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I get a chord like this. Now if I flatten or lower by a half step, the third note of that, I've created a chord with 1, flat 3, and 5, and it goes from sounding like this to this. That's the difference in a major and a minor chord, the flat third. So let's learn D major chord. And I'll refer to my tablature sheet here. Just to refresh you, when you're looking at tab, you're looking at the guitar strings from your perspective. So this is the low E and the high E. 0 means play an open note. X means don't play that string. So here is my first chord, D minor. Now I'm going to play D major. And I've raised this note here from an F to an F sharp. If I use the second or the ninth note of my D major scale, I can build a D9 chord. Here's my D major scale, by the way. So let's take the D9 chord, which is a suspended chord, and add a couple of more songs, a couple of more chords, and work up to learning a great classic rock song to play. So here's my D9 chord. It's a suspended chord, and a suspended chord replaces the third with either the second or the fourth note of the scale. Since it doesn't have a third, it's not major or minor. Here's a D suspended chord. Here's the C. And when I change that chord, one thing that doesn't change is my ring finger on the third fret of the B string. It's going to stay there. Then we call that a pivot finger. When I switch to the next chord, the G chord, I'm going to maintain the shape of these two fingers and just pick them up. And my pivot finger stays the same, my ring finger. So it makes it much easier and faster to change chords by not picking up my ring finger. And by maintaining the shape of these two when I change from C to G, I'm using finger efficiency. I want to change the shape of my fingers as little as I have to. That also makes the chords easier to change. So that D note on my ring finger is ringing out like a drone note, which is a pleasing effect to have a drone. In fact, I'm going to refer to one of the guitar masters. This is one of my favorite books about playing guitar and being a guitar player. It's Life by Keith Richards. Highly recommend it for you grown-ups out there. Some parts maybe not appropriate for children. Let's read a quote from Keith about drone notes. Let it go so that one note harmonizes off the other. And so even though you've now changed your fingers to another position, that note is still ringing. And you can let it hang there. It's called the drone note, or at least that's what I call it. When you play it and that note keeps ringing, even though you've now changed to another chord, you realize that it is the root note of the whole thing you're trying to do. It's the drone. You're out of the realms of normal music. You're up the Limpopo with Yellow Jack. I don't really know what that last part means, but that's Keith for you. So thanks, Keith Richards. So let's take those chords we've learned, D, C, and G, and learn a classic rock song, and it's classic for a good reason, because it's great. Sweet Home Alabama, released in 1974 on Leonard Skinner's Second Helping album. The main riff was created by Gary Rosington, who's kind of the Keith Richards of Leonard Skinner. So we're going to start with our D9 chord, and as I've notated on the tab, I'm going to hit the D string twice. So, this song helps to illustrate two very important guitar techniques, the hammer-on and the pull-off. The hammer-on is when I play a note with my right hand and then I hammer on a string to get two notes like this. A pull-off is when I hit a note and then I pull off. So I get two notes, I play the note, and I pull off. I've notated the hammer-ons with a little symbol like this between the two notes, and the pull-offs with a little symbol under. And this technique is used in all kinds of music. For instance, It's featured in another riff in the same song where the hammer-on is. Interesting fact about Sweet Home Alabama. The song was written by Leonard Skinner in response to a song by Neil Young called Alabama. They felt that Neil was criticizing the South and they didn't appreciate it. Actually, the band Skinner was from Florida, but they, being Southerners, they decided to take up for the state of Alabama. Strangely enough, even though they called Neil out in the song, they became friends with Neil to the extent that Ronnie Van Zant often wore a t-shirt on stage with Neil Young's Tonight's the Night album cover on it. There's rumors that Ronnie was buried in the shirt. And Neil was also a big fan of Leonard Skinner. He presented his song Powderfinger to them in hopes that they would record it. Sadly, the band was in a plane crash in South Mississippi on October 20th, 1977, close to Macomb, Mississippi, and 3 of the band members passed away: Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and Cassie Gaines. A few weeks after the plane crash, Neil performed a mashup of his song Alabama and Skinner's song Sweet Home Alabama. And after that, Neil has never performed his song Alabama live since. So, a lot of love there. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy guitar playing. Cheers.